Now, in one of the reviews that I read by a bike review journalist type person, they kept saying how the bike weighs more, which I believe it does if you put it on a scale. It might weigh 20 pounds more. When you ride it, I'll say it right here, you would think it weighs half the amount of a gas-powered machine, half the amount. And the reason why is inertia. Now, we've got to get into the technical side of a motorcycle here. But if you have two motorbikes, gas-powered motorbikes, and they weigh exactly the same amount, yet one's a 125cc and one's a 450cc, yet they both weigh, let's say, 100 kilos exactly, the 450 will feel like it weighs double than the 125. And the reason why is inertia. Now, inertia is the force moving forwards on a motorcycle. Now, inside of our engine, we have the clutch, the piston, the crank, the gearbox, all these sorts of things, and they're all moving in a forwards facing direction because that's the way the motorbike is going. As well as that, we have our wheels, they're going that way. And all the forces of the machine are setting us forward. Now, think of this as if you are on a roller coaster and it's going along nice and smooth, it's pretty good, and all of a sudden it stops. You'd go flying out the front. That is inertia, right? On a motorcycle, we have constant inertia. Now, what sucks about inertia is imagine holding an angle grinder or like a demo saw, something with a big spinning blade at the front, and then rev it up and try and rotate it. It's very, very difficult because you've got all that force going that way, and here you are trying to steer it and turn the angle of it. It gets very, very difficult, and the reason why is the forward-facing inertia. Now, this is the biggest issue on motorcycles in regards to handling. It has the most impact on a motorcycle, right? On an electric bike, you guessed it, this is gone. There is no inertia. There is none. There is just a battery. There is no forward spinning mechanical motor in there. And to give you an idea about how important inertia is, on MotoGP bikes, right, the very, very top factory bikes, they actually turn the engine around. They rotate it so it spins backwards, right? The crank will spin backwards, the clutch will spin backwards, the gearbox will spin backwards. And what they do is they chuck another little motor here to then reverse it around the other way so the chain spins the right direction and turns the wheel forwards. Now, the reason they reverse the motor is to neutralize the force, the forward inertia from the wheels. This one goes backwards, these ones go forwards, and it equals out. So then what it does is it makes it feel like a BMX bike or a mountain bike, so nimble and so light, it neutralizes the forces. Now, this is incredibly expensive to do, so no production bike ever in the history of the world has ever had a backwards facing engine like this, like the MotoGP bikes, right? They literally just do it for the top tier, top races to help with their performance. Now, on an electric bike, this is literally gone. There is no inertia. Now, why is this so important? Is because when you ride the damn thing, it feels like it weighs 20 kilos. It's light as a feather. Whether you want to lean it over into a corner, whip it on a jump, hit some bumps, whatever it is. Let's say you've got a motorcycle, a 450cc with a heavy inertia engine. The range for perfect is in here, right? When you lean your bike over, whether you lean it over too far or not enough, the window is very, very small between good and bad. Out here is bad, in here is good. This is the window. On a motorcycle with no inertia, so just a BMX bike or something, or like, let's say a 125 compared to a 450, the window is out here. Now, anywhere in here is good. Out here is bad. Because that inertia is gone, you can make so many mistakes and get away with it. You can almost just throw it into a corner and it's all good. Same thing on the jumps, whatever it is. So this is really, really beneficial, and that's the reason why it feels so light. As well as that, bumps. We're going to get into the handling in a bit. I'm going to break that down. But if you have a bump here and you're coming at it on your motorcycle and you hit it, boom, your bike is going to kick forwards on the bump, right? It's going to kick forwards. And as it kicks forwards, well, the wheels are rotating forwards and the inertia is rotating forwards and the back wheel's going forwards, and now you're slowing down, and now you've got the engine brake, all the forces are going like this, and then you kick the bum up, boom. What sucks about bumps? Getting kicked up in the arse. On an electric bike, that doesn't happen either because there is no engine brake. That inertia is gone. It literally will just coast over it. It's just two wheels, free rolling over a bump. There is not that uplifting, slowing inertia, kicking force. So the handling on it is incredible as well. So that was about the engine, but more so affects the handling via the laws of inertia. The most impressive thing I'm going to say was the throttle response and power. And the reason for this is very, very clear. I'm going to explain it to you here. On a gas-powered machine, we have our throttle, right? We twist the throttle. The throttle goes on a cable, it goes all around the place, around the bike, and it comes down here to a carby slide. Now the carby slide has to open. Fuel will come in this way. Air will come in this way. It will push that into a piston. The piston lights on fire. The piston turns the crank turns the gearbox and the clutch, and that turns the sprocket, which then turns the rear wheel, right? So you twist your throttle, it goes all the way from here until you get traction, right? Until the wheel actually spins and gives you what you want, forwards facing momentum. On an electric bike, they have this thing called a fly-by-wire or live-by-wire, something like that. The terms don't matter, the fact is it's fucking good. Throttle on the electric bike, there is no cable, it's electric, right? It senses when the throttle turns, and literally from there, the throttle turns, it goes to the wheel, that's it. There's a battery pack along here, and what it will do is it will send positive and negative neurons together, and just like two magnets, they don't want to touch, so then they'll spin and they'll create a little bit of force. These are very, very small. These will turn, it goes straight into the drivetrain, off it goes. That is it. There is none of this process. It literally goes from hand to wheel with a very small electrical process taking place in the middle. Now, to think of this, to compare this, as quickly as you can light up your phone screen, or as quickly as you can turn that light switch on and off, that is as quick as that throttle will get power to the rear wheel. It is instant. There is none of the muck, none of the clutter in the middle. You turn the throttle, it sends a sensor to the wheel, and it moves. That is it. It's so quick. Now, because of this, the bike I rode, I believe, was a 70 horsepower Stark Varg. He gave it to me on map 3 of 5. I think map 3 is like 40 horsepower or 30 horsepower. Because of the throttle responsiveness, 30 feels like 60. I mean that, guys. I've ridden my entire life, right? I know what I'm talking about. 30 horsepower on a Stark feels like 60. I put the thing in level 4, I put the thing in level 5. It was too quick. And it was too quick because it was too responsive, right? There is none of this lag in the middle. It's instant to the back wheel. So you have to have really, really, really good throttle control. And to be honest with you, like, it almost doubles the power via the efficiency of the throttle. Okay, so you can ride it on that 30 horsepower mode and you can go extremely quick. I'll say quicker than the 450F. Honestly, I mean that. On the setting 3, you would go quicker than a 450F on a Stark Varg purely because of the fly-by-wire, whatever the bloody hell it's called, throttle setup rather than the cable, slide, carby, all that bullshit, right? So that was absolutely incredible. I mean, the power on it is just next world, next level. It is sensational. Right, so we covered the inertia, that was a positive. We covered the throttle response, that is a positive. Now we'll talk about the suspension. Now the suspension setup, mechanically, it's basically the same as a gas production bike, and that's how it felt. I really didn't notice too much in the way of suspension, as far as the way it compressed, it rebounded, it loaded, all these sorts of things. It just felt normal. It felt really, really good. Where it was fantastic was in the bumps, but it was fantastic in the bumps due to the lack of inertia in the engine, so the lack of engine braking. It would just coast and float over them. So I would not put that down to suspension, but from everything I could tell, it would seem the window of perfection on an electric bike for suspension is much wider than, say, the average 450 or whatever machine. And the reason for that is again, down to that inertia, right? You're not having to correct so many forces and get them all aligned perfectly. The weight, the balance, the forwards, the backwards, all these sorts of things, and get them into this narrow little window where it feels good. On an electric bike, that window is much, much bigger because there's a lot less forces at play. It's just a throttle, a wheel, zero inertia, zero engine brake, just rolling wheels. And that is fantastic. So suspension wise, I really don't have too much there to say. It just seems like a normal conventional bike. You could click it harder, you could click it softer, you could do whatever you want to do. I'm sure anybody could get it set up for them amazing. I have no idea what setting this bike had in it, but I'm just gonna say it, due to the lack of inertia and engine braking, it felt better than my 450F.